Hi, I'm Paul Duchesne, and welcome to Mama Paul in the Kitchen. Today is Wednesday, August the 4th, and I'm going to do something I've been talking about for a while now. I'm going to make a half a dozen brown rice and tofu sandwiches. Now, this was the product that I originally created a long time ago, back around late 70s, early 80s, which led to building Wildwood Natural Foods. Short story long, I'm going to get right to the point here and make it a long story short. I've already put some water on the stove. I'm going to do 90% of this right in front of you. I'm going to cook 3 cups of rice. See, this is short grain brown rice, Lundberg short grain brown rice. It has always been cleaner than clean, and I've never found a reason to have to wash it. I've got 4 cups of water, spring water, in the pressure cooker on the back. I'm going to put 3 cups of rice in. So 3 cups of rice and 4 cups of water. Generally, it's about a cup more of water per the amount of rice you've got. And the more rice you get, the more you can back off on the water a little bit. So if you got the 10 cups of rice, say, 10 cups of water is probably going to be adequate. So let's get this going. This whole process is going to take a few hours, so what we're going to do is we're going to do part of the process, then we're going to stop and I'm going to let that finish, and then I'll come back and do a second part where we put the sandwiches together. Anyway, so we started off with 3 cups of rice, and the next thing we're going to do is get the marinade going for the tofu, and I'll talk about everything after I get things sort of started. When I make a marinade for the tofu, what I use is soy sauce, garlic, ginger, and some herbs. This little pack of Italian herbs I bought. I just bought a pack instead of buying them bulk to save some time today. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, say, well, I've got 10 ounces here. I'm going to make about a 50-50 about 50% soy sauce and about 50% water. I'm going to put boiling water in here. So I've already boiled the water earlier. In fact, this just sort of steamed down. So now I've got 4, 8, 9. So I've got about a 50-50 mixture of soy sauce, 5 ounces of soy sauce, 5 ounces of water. And I'm going to add some ginger to that and some garlic. Now, when I do this marinade, what I used to do is I would soak the tofu overnight in the marinade, and I can't do that today because I'm going to do the whole thing live. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the stove. I'm going to make the marinade, and I'm going to put the tofu on the stove. I'm going to let it simmer for about a half hour, an hour, and that will sort of duplicate what would have happened if I left it sitting overnight. All right, so we grate up a bunch of ginger here, a nice little handful of ginger, and we'll put that, try to get that into with the tamari soy sauce. I'm using Sanjay's organic tamari soy sauce. Now I have a little brush here. I have a tiny little, these are little mushroom brushes, but sometimes they're good on these little graters. In fact, I probably use it more on a grater for ginger than I have ever for mushrooms, to tell you the truth. Okay. All right, we got that. Now we'll get a little garlic. For garlic, I break the whole thing open. And I've got 2 tools that I use for garlic all the time. One is this little rubber sheath. What you do is, it's really cool. My daughter recommended this to me a few years ago. You put the garlic heads in there, and you just roll it. And what it does is, the skins start to pop off very nicely. Look at that. Popped off. Well, not quite. All right. So we got 2 chunks. I think we're going to go for 3 nice pieces of garlic. And yeah, 1, 2, and 3. That should do it. That should be enough garlic. And I'll take the other pieces that, oops, that's not looking good. All right, so we'll put these over here, and the rest of this is the skins and everything, and the bad piece. I have a little compost below us here. Now this was the garlic press I've been using for a long time. I'll bet most of you have bought a garlic press in the past, and half of them break. You use them and the hinge on them breaks all the time. This one is from Pampered Chef, and this has got to be the best garlic press I have ever gotten. And let's see how that goes. Okay. Now there was a little tool that came with this garlic press years ago, and it fit right in the middle here, and it had little holes in so you could punch anything out. Well, that sort of long disappeared, but here we go. Okay, garlic, ginger, and I'm going to use a combination of Italian herbs, which is mostly oregano, thyme, basil, and oregano, thyme, basil. And we're going to do, that's quite a bit. I'm thinking maybe about 1/3 of the package here. Yeah. Yeah, that should do it. Now, when you're making a marinade like this, the marinade will be good for now, it'll be good for maybe a week, but the herbs and the garlic and the ginger in there are going to start to go bad after a few days, after maybe a week. So what I would frequently do is I would filter the marinade after I'd used it once or twice. Run it through some cheesecloth, and the tamari soy sauce would hold up for sure. It's the herbs in there that are going to start to go bad after, say, a week. So with that, and we're going to make half a dozen sandwiches, brown rice tofu sandwiches. The tofu, I have 2 tofus here. I have Wildwood tofu, and this was the company that I made. And this is Hodo tofu from Oakland. And this is actually probably the better tofu that's on the market right now. I visited them over there in Berkeley. Really nice people, really good product. Nobody's making cauldron style tofu anymore. I think I was the only one that maybe made it at all. Okay, let's go. We're going to dice these into quarters. So I got four pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this will be enough tofu for 6 sandwiches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. Perfect. I'm going to just use a small pot, and we'll see if that's enough marinade. And I want to cover the tofu and then let it simmer for about an hour. And that was a little bit not enough. Okay, I'll tell you what, let's we need a couple more ounces in there. There's certainly plenty of herbs in there, more than enough herbs. And we'll finish off with a little bit of the water. So I guess we went with about 6 ounces. That did it. Okay, so the tofu's floating. That's what I wanted. I wanted the tofu to be floating in the water. So, my back is to you. I've got the pressure cooker going here. Pressure cooker is a little back there. You feel the pressure building up. It's starting to spin around, so it's almost at pressure. I'll put a little flame under the tofu over here, real low flame. Once this comes to pressure, which is going to be any second now, you'll hear it shooting off. And as it does, I will set the timer for about 45 minutes. And while that's all cooking, we will prepare the rest of the vegetables. Now, I didn't sharpen the knives today because I sharpened the knives the other night at work. We have an electric sharpener at work which works much better, much better than anything I have done with the hand sharpening tool. Much better. Okay, so we could bring it down right now. Spinning away, you can feel the pressure on the back there. We're at nice pressure. Turn the flame down real low, and it's afternoon, so I'm looking at when this will be ready. So it'll cook for about 20 minutes now while we're on the air, and the rest of it will happen off the air. Okay, so brown rice tofu sandwich, brown rice tofu. There's going to be a miso tahini spread, which is sort of the secret ingredient to the whole sandwich, is the miso tahini spread. And we'll put that together last. With the rice, we're going to saute the rice with leeks and a little soy sauce. We're going to parboil some carrots. We're going to parboil some kale. We're going to clean some lettuce. I'm going to do that right now. And I'm going to put the water on here. I should have done that earlier maybe. And we'll start to boil the water to parboil the kale and the lettuce and the carrots. And, okay. So, when I do the lettuce, especially on these sandwiches, I really like the crunchy white part of the romaine lettuce. And in this case, I've already taken the outer leaves off, and I cut off the ends, and mostly what's left here is actually very, very clean lettuce. Having said that, I will still spin it. I will wash it, which I just did, and I will spin it. Okay, so we've got a little spinner here, and we'll do this in the sink so we don't make a mess all over the place. Alrighty, lettuce is looking good. And what I'll do with the lettuce, I don't want to put the lettuce on wet under any, so I'm just going to put the lettuce in a nice clean dish towel to help the drying process. So we'll dry that off like that. Okay. The kale and the carrot will go to the boiling water. All right. So I'm going to take the carrots. I like to put a long strip of carrot across the sandwich. Get rid of the two tippy little ends. And you can use that little mushroom brush to clean off the carrots. So we'll see what we've got here. The bread. Okay, so this is just about, I'm going to get rid of the little end there. I like it to fit sort of on across the whole length of the sandwich. Now I called these a sandwich originally because that was sort of the world I lived in, with sandwiches. As a kid growing up, I used to make Dagwood sandwiches. Blondie and Dagwood, the comic strip, and Dagwood was always getting up in the middle of the night making some ridiculously large sandwich at night. I used to do the same thing. And I would make these sandwiches with everything but the kitchen sink on them. I made one once. It was really bad. The sandwich got to be about this thick. And it would have been really good if I hadn't put the sardines near the strawberry jam. I remember that was the killer. And that really wrecked it. So anyway, having said that, what have I got? I got 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that's more than enough pieces of carrots. That'll do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we're good. We've got enough pieces of carrots. And I'm just going to put this in the water that's coming to a boil. It's almost at a boil. I'm not going to cook those carrots very long. I'm going to cook them when the water comes to a boil. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dip the kale into the water, parboil it. Parboil it. And I'm going to take it out of the water, let it cool off, and then I'm going to cut it up. I'm going to put the fan on because it is getting a little tepid in here. We also use sprouts on the sandwich, and in this case, alfalfa sprouts. I used to bounce back and forth between alfalfa and clover. Either one will do. The leek is, well, it was looking better when I originally got it, and I planned on doing this last week, so obviously I didn't. So I'm going to use about half of this leek. And the leeks always have to get cleaned off. The leek, probably more than anything, you always get this mud. You get a lot of mud in the leeks. I noticed this over the years. So the leek, you definitely need to rinse those leeks out really well. The carrots, they can be, they're generally not muddy at all. They've generally been pretty well cleaned by the growers. But the leeks, anything that's got a multiple layer like this, where it's sort of like an onion kind of skinny thing, you have to get into it to really clean it off. So these sandwiches originally came from, I had quit working at AT&T. I was in San Francisco. I was into macrobiotics. We were part of a macrobiotic study group. We were hanging out with a lot of macrobiotic people. We had gotten into health food really big time. And the kids weren't crazy about most of the health food, but the kids did like fried rice. So I was making a lot of fried rice in the house. And we would go on picnics frequently. We would take a picnic, we'd go out to the park. And so I had the rice, and I was trying to get the kids into more and more vegetables. So I created the sandwich along the way. Now, the funny thing is, I wasn't like a big tofu person to start with. And after AT&T, I was working on the side, making avocado cheese sandwiches and tofu cheese sandwiches for the health food store. My first sort of non-traditional job. And working with the tofu, back in the late 70s, early 80s, all the tofu was coming from a company in San Francisco called Prong Hop. The tofu was good, it wasn't bad or anything, but they would vacuum pack the tofu. And when you vacuum pack the tofu, the procedures for vacuum packing weren't as good as they are today. And by the 5th day, you would open up a pack of tofu and it would be really slimy from all the whey that's still getting exuded from the tofu after it's made. So if the tofu was a little bit old, it was really disgusting looking. And I started to notice this, and it was like, something wrong here. So it was around the same time that Bill Shurtleff published the Book of Tofu. He had gone to Japan and gotten totally enamored and taken with the whole tofu scene in Japan. He wrote the Book of Tofu just as I was starting to look at these health food issues, and I embraced the whole Book of Tofu big time. Okay, I've got the leeks cut over here. I'm going to move these into a little bowl. Just put it right back into, I'll just store them in the little container that the tofu was in. I wasn't sure whether I was going to be able to do this in the amount of time I've got actually to make this reasonable. And originally I was going to make a dozen of these, but I cut it in half. It was just getting to be too big a project. And I thought I was going to try to explain where this whole thing came from. It's part of my experiment here. But talking and cutting are not, doing two things at once is not the easiest thing to do, as I'm learning, which is sort of why I wanted to do this in the first place. to see how it went. Okay, I suspect that the carrots are almost done. I'm sure the water, yep, the water is boiling. The carrots are done. I'm going to bring it right up here. Yeah. Okay, carrots I'm sure are done. And the kale, I'm just going to take the kale and dip it into the boiling water. Parboil it, literally parboil it. So the water is off the stove, it's not boiling anymore. Definitely 200 degrees. The carrots appear to be nicely done. Okay. Ooh, hot. Okay, so we're going to let that sit there for a minute. I'm going to check the carrots, make sure they're one more minute maybe. And the tofu is still marinating. So we have the leek cut. We're ready to do the kale next. And I think the carrot didn't need a whole lot more. We're gonna let this come to a boil, then I'm gonna kill it. Okay, so the kale. So what I do with the kale is bring it out. If you're working with it, it's too hot, just wait a few minutes. Wait till it cools off. You don't have to put cold water on it. Although, if you were worried that it was getting overcooked, then put on some cold water on it, and that would stop it from cooking. Usually, you've got something like this, and it's really hot. It can keep cooking in its own steams. You know, if you got broccoli on the stove, for instance, say we're cooking broccoli, it's real easy to overcook broccoli. And you take broccoli, it's just perfect, you know, and you take it off the stove and you leave it in the pot, and the hot water that's steaming it is still coming up, and the heat that's in the broccoli is still there, and the whole thing sort of overcooks in about 2 minutes. All right, so I dice this up. I'm going to wring it out again. And okay, so that's the kale. And then we'll get the carrots. Okay, let's get the carrots. And the carrots are, yes, a little bit on the crunchy side, but that's okay. That's okay. Better to have a little bit on the crunchy side than overcooked. The crunch is going to put quite a bit into the product at the end of the day. So these are still steaming out. This one's been steamed off. We got this the leeks here that we're going to saute the rice in when the rice is cooked. And last but not least, well, I didn't think we'd get to it, but maybe we will, is the miso tahini spread. So this is the secret ingredient in the whole product. This is what everybody's eyes go to the top of their head over, and this is the flavor that carries through big time. So what we're going to do is we're going to make about, now my only embarrassment here is the 365 whole food tahini. I hate buying anything from Whole Food, I really do. I find it very disturbing. Having said that, is the only place I could get the good tahini. Sahadi makes the best tahini. Sahadi makes the best tahini. It's hard getting a really good organic tahini. Tahini needs to be, it's sesame seeds that are crushed, and you really need to do it 2 or 3 times to really get the maximum kind of soft, look at this. Wow. Is that gorgeous? I mean, it's good tahini. That's what should happen. It should pour out like that. Now, right after I opened this, I actually spent about 15 minutes stirring it up because it was separating at the bottom, and it was chunks of it at the bottom with the oils at the top. So I literally stirred the thing up before I started. Now what have I got here? I got a cup here. We want to make a mixture that is about 3 times the tahini, 3 to 3.5 times the tahini, 1 part miso. So we have 1 cup here. So theoretically about 1/3 of a cup should do it. Now what did that get me to? 1 1/3 exactly. Okay. Now this is South River Miso. I visited these people many years ago. They're in Massachusetts, traditionally wood-fired, unpasteurized. These guys are the king miso makers in America. Black soybeans. They're using them in deep well water, all organic products, in a wood-burning stoves, traditionally made, wood-fired, unbelievable, unpasteurized. So this kind of thing, this kind of miso does come alive inside you. It's a naturally fermented product that is literally alive with enzymes and all sorts of probiotics. What I need to do with this is mix this up and blend it. And how we're blending it is a bit of a, let's see, I'm not sure. This is totally experimental right now. You know what, let me move it over here. Turn the flame off. Here, turn the flame off. There. And I thought I had 90% of this all prepped. There's always one little thing you forget to do. Okay. And usually, well, let's just see how this works. We'll bring the speed down. We'll start real low. Okay. Sometimes something like this can start to splatter all over the place. If you start real low, and work your way up. When I used to make this years ago, we used to add a little scallions to it, and they're good if you're going to make this if you're going to make it on a 1 or 2 day basis. It's okay, but if you're going to make the this spread and have it last for a few days, you don't want to put any vegetable in there at all. Chives would work too. Chives would be good to give a little spicy bite. Okay. Alrighty. Now, I tell you what, we're gonna stop right there for the moment. Wait a minute. The blending is not going well. I'm going to finish this off the air. Okay, what I'm going to do is we're going to wrap it up for now. I did almost 90% of what I planned on doing, so hopefully we can do this in 2 shows. And I'm going to saute the rice up, and hopefully we'll be able to lay them out. If not 2, it'll be 3 shows. But anyway, the whole point is how to make a brown rice tofu sandwich. This is what got me started in the business in the first place. Went from macrobiotics to wild with natural foods. Didn't turn out to be the greatest partnership in the world. I then reintroduced the sandwiches about 5 or 6 years later in the mid-'80s. And historically, it was the Whole Food that literally put Mama Paul out of business back then. And there's an interesting segue about that story. Alrighty, that's it for today. Peace, patience, persistence. I'll see you real soon. I'll see you actually probably in about an hour from now. Okay.